Under the Trump administration, we're finally treating the cartels as the core national security threat that they really are. The cartels are waging war on America, and just as I promised in the campaign, we're waging war on them like they've never seen before. All you have to do is turn on your television and you'll see what's happening to them.
All of our agencies working hand in hand, and that's why this is so successful. And these people around this table are working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, even though the Democrats have tried to shut down the government. Our kids safe and get these drugs off our streets. Like Mayor of San Francisco and I are going to be meeting on fentanyl in a few weeks and working hand in hand on that. Secretary Noem spoke to him. But the results of this last month have been historic. As the president said,
the governor of Massachusetts was running a drug cartel. For 6 years, he used your state police to escort cartel shipments. He stored 1.2 tons of poison in your state warehouses. He kept an illegal arsenal, 129 guns, grenades, body armor, hidden in the governor's mansion. And he pocketed $780 million while families across New England buried loved ones lost to overdoses. The FBI just seized evidence so damning that this governor will die in federal prison. Secret ledgers, wiretapped calls coordinating with cartels, cash hidden in his state house office, and something they found in those warehouses that proves he wasn't just protecting traffickers, he was a trafficker. Subscribe to Truth America right now because you need to see what they found. Here's what happened. January 22nd, 2025, Massachusetts State House, Boston. FBI Special Agent Michael Torres stood outside the gold-domed Capitol building where Governor Richard Hayes had served for 6 years. Behind those historic walls, the FBI had discovered something that would shock Massachusetts to its core. The governor of Massachusetts was on the Sinaloa Cartel's payroll. For 6 years, Governor Hayes had taken $780 million in bribes to use state resources to protect drug trafficking operations across New England. He'd corrupted 66 members of his administration, including his chief of staff, 23 state police officers, 18 state agency directors, and 24 other officials into a criminal enterprise that moved drugs, weapons, and money while protected by the full power of the governor's office. When FBI raided the State House, Hayes' private offices, and state facilities, they seized 1.2 tons of cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl stored in state warehouses, supposedly holding emergency supplies. At the governor's official residence, agents found 129 illegal firearms, including assault rifles, machine guns, and grenades hidden in secret rooms. And in Hayes' State House office safe, $4.7 million in cash and ledgers documenting 6 years of corruption. Governor Hayes had used Massachusetts State Police to escort drug shipments, state warehouses to store narcotics, state vehicles to transport contraband, and his executive authority to block investigations and pardon convicted traffickers. The entire apparatus of state government had been weaponized to serve the Sinaloa Cartel. Want to see how the FBI brought down a sitting governor who turned a state government into a cartel subsidiary? Smash that like button and subscribe to Truth America right now, because this is corruption at the absolute highest level of state government. This is what happens when someone sworn to serve the people instead serves drug cartels. Richard Hayes was elected governor of Massachusetts in 2018 after serving 12 years in the state legislature. His campaign promised to be tough on crime, secure communities, and support law enforcement. Voters gave him the keys to one of America's most powerful state governments, control over state police, transportation, corrections, and a $50 billion annual budget. But within months of taking office, Hayes was approached by Sinaloa Cartel financial operatives with an offer that would define his governorship: $120 million annually to use state resources to facilitate drug trafficking across New England. The cartel's problem was simple. They could get drugs into the United States through southern borders, but distributing them across northeastern states required transportation networks, storage facilities, and protection from law enforcement. Hayes could provide all three. Hayes accepted. He began systematically recruiting officials into the conspiracy, starting with his inner circle. The Department of Corrections let traffickers use prison visitation as cover for meetings. Emergency management warehouses, supposedly holding disaster supplies, actually stored 1.2 tons of cartel drugs waiting for distribution. The operation worked like this. Cartel shipments would arrive at ports in Boston or cross state lines from New York. State police would escort them to state warehouses where drugs were stored. When distribution was ready, state vehicles would transport drugs to dealers across Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. The entire network operated under the protection of the governor's office. Over 6 years, Hayes' network moved an estimated $4.8 billion worth of drugs through New England. The cartel paid Hayes $780 million total, $120 million annually, plus bonuses. The 66 corrupt officials earned between $200,000 and $4 million each, depending on their roles. Hayes lived like a king while Massachusetts communities suffered from drug violence enabled by his corruption. The investigation that would destroy Hayes' empire began in June 2024, when DEA agents in Connecticut arrested a mid-level cartel distributor. During interrogation, he mentioned something that made investigators' blood run cold: cartel shipments moving through New England under state protection with police escorts. DEA contacted FBI's Public Corruption Unit. Because the target appeared to be state-level officials, potentially very high-level, the investigation was classified at the highest levels and required approval from the Attorney General. Pamela Bondi personally authorized the investigation after reviewing preliminary evidence suggesting systematic corruption. FBI began with surveillance of suspected corrupt state police officers identified through the arrested distributor. Agents observed state police vehicles escorting unmarked trucks, providing protection at what appeared to be drug transfer points, and coordinating with individuals later identified as cartel operatives. In August 2024, FBI obtained federal warrants for financial records of state officials. Governor Hayes' disclosed income was his $185,000 governor's salary plus minimal investment income. But forensic accountants discovered he'd purchased a $8.4 million vacation estate in the Berkshires, owned 3 luxury vehicles worth $600,000, and held offshore accounts containing $23 million. The money trail led through shell companies to cartel financial networks. The investigation expanded to Hayes' administration. His chief of staff showed similar unexplained wealth. State police officers were depositing cash amounts far exceeding their salaries. Agency directors controlled companies receiving state contracts while simultaneously receiving cartel payments. The corruption touched every level of Hayes' government. In October 2024, FBI installed covert surveillance in state facilities and obtained wiretaps on Hayes and his inner circle. The audio and video evidence was devastating. Hayes coordinating drug shipments with cartel operatives in his state house office, state police planning escort routes, agency directors arranging warehouse access, all captured on FBI recordings. Drop a comment below. Should governors who betray their oath face life in prison? What's the penalty for using state government to help cartels? And if you're not subscribed to Truth America yet, hit that button. We expose corruption at the highest levels of government. Subscribe now. One wiretapped conversation captured Hayes telling his chief of staff, "The shipment arrives Thursday at midnight. I want 4 state police units escorting from the port to the Framingham warehouse. No stops, no delays. This one's worth $40 million to us." The casual nature of the discussion, planning drug trafficking like it was routine state business, shocked even veteran FBI agents. In November 2024, FBI conducted a controlled raid on a State Department of Transportation warehouse in Worcester following a tip that drugs were stored there. Inside, agents found 340 kilograms of cocaine hidden in containers labeled road salt. Inventory records showed the containers had been received from a trucking company with known cartel ties. The warehouse manager, one of Hayes' appointees, was arrested and agreed to cooperate. The manager's testimony was explosive. He described a 6-year operation where state facilities across Massachusetts stored cartel drugs. Hayes personally approved the warehouse usage. State police provided security. And when honest employees questioned suspicious deliveries, they were transferred or fired at Hayes' direction. By December 2024, FBI had overwhelming evidence. Financial records proving $780 million in corrupt proceeds, wiretaps documenting Hayes coordinating trafficking, surveillance showing state police escorting cartel shipments, seized drugs from state facilities, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. January 29, 2025. 6 a.m. FBI tactical teams coordinated the largest state-level political corruption takedown in U.S. history. Operation State House Fall would simultaneously arrest Governor Hayes, raid the Massachusetts State House, seize 1.2 tons of drugs from state facilities, and take 67 individuals into custody. At precisely 6:17 a.m., FBI entered the governor's official residence in Boston. Hayes was having breakfast when agents knocked. "Richard Hayes, FBI, you're under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and corruption of public office." Hayes, who'd spent 6 years wielding executive power, was now handcuffed in his bathrobe. Agents searched the residence and found secret rooms Hayes had constructed. Inside, 129 illegal firearms, including fully automatic assault rifles, grenades, body armor, and silencers. Some weapons had serial numbers traced to cartel armories in Mexico. Others were high-end tactical equipment meant for military or law enforcement. Hayes had essentially built a private arsenal in the governor's mansion. At the State House, FBI raided Hayes's offices while the building was largely empty before normal business hours. In his private office safe, $4.7 million in cash bundled in $100,000 stacks, detailed ledgers documenting 6 years of cartel payments, encrypted phones with cartel contacts, and lists of the 66 corrupt officials with their roles and payment amounts. Across Massachusetts, FBI and state police honest officers raided state facilities. At the Framingham warehouse, agents seized 680 kilograms of cocaine and methamphetamine. At a Worcester facility, 340 kilograms of fentanyl. At a Springfield location, 180 kilograms of various drugs. Total, 1.2 tons of narcotics stored in state government warehouses. Simultaneously, 66 officials were arrested. Hayes's chief of staff at his home, 23 state police officers at their stations or residences, 18 agency directors at their offices, and 24 other officials across state government. Not one was warned, not one escaped. January 30th, 2025. Attorney General Pamela Bondi held a press conference at FBI Boston field office alongside FBI Director Christopher Wray, DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, and Massachusetts U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy. Yesterday, the FBI arrested the governor of Massachusetts and 66 state officials for operating a criminal enterprise on behalf of the Sinaloa Cartel. For 6 years, Governor Hayes used state police, state warehouses, state vehicles, and the full power of his office to traffic drugs across New England. He took $780 million in bribes. He stored 1.2 tons of cartel drugs in state facilities. He kept 129 illegal weapons in the governor's mansion. He betrayed every citizen of Massachusetts and will spend the rest of his life in federal prison. The Massachusetts legislature immediately convened emergency sessions. The lieutenant governor was sworn in as acting governor. Articles of impeachment against Hayes were drafted within 48 hours. The State House of Representatives voted 156-0 to impeach. The State Senate voted 38-0 to convict and remove Hayes from office permanently. Federal charges were comprehensive: racketeering, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, money laundering, weapons violations, and corruption of public office. Hayes faced over 300 criminal counts carrying potential sentences exceeding 400 years plus multiple life sentences. Faced with overwhelming evidence, 59 of the 67 defendants accepted plea agreements within 4 months. State police officers received sentences ranging from 15 to 32 years. Agency directors got 18 to 35 years. Hayes's chief of staff received 40 years. All lost pensions and were banned from public employment. 8 defendants, including Hayes, went to trial in June 2025. The prosecution presented financial records showing $780 million in bribes, wiretaps of Hayes coordinating with cartels, photos of 1.2 tons of drugs in state facilities, the 129 illegal weapons from his residence, and testimony from cooperating officials. The jury deliberated 2 days before convicting all 8 defendants on all counts. At sentencing in September 2025, Richard Hayes received 8 consecutive life sentences plus 300 years in federal prison. The judge's words were scathing. "You were elected to serve the people of Massachusetts. Instead, you served drug cartels. You corrupted state government into a criminal enterprise. You stored poison in state warehouses. You kept an arsenal in the governor's mansion. You are a disgrace to public service and will die in federal prison." All assets connected to the conspiracy, totaling $340 million from Hayes and the 66 officials, were forfeited to the federal government and dedicated to addiction treatment programs in Massachusetts. The scandal triggered comprehensive reforms. Massachusetts implemented new ethics requirements, financial disclosure for all state officials, random audits of state facilities, whistleblower protections, and federal oversight of state police for 5 years. President Trump addressed the case. The governor of Massachusetts took $780 million from drug cartels. He used state police to escort drugs. He stored 1.2 tons of poison in state warehouses. He kept 129 illegal guns in the governor's mansion. This is the deepest corruption at state level we've ever seen. But we caught him, prosecuted him, and he will never leave federal prison. Richard Hayes sits in ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Colorado, serving 8 life sentences. The 66 corrupt officials served decades across the federal prison system, and Massachusetts works to rebuild trust in state government after the worst corruption scandal in its 400-year history. If you believe Truth America is essential to exposing corruption at the highest levels of state government, then like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Share this with everyone who demands accountability from elected officials. This is why we exist, to expose governors who betray their oaths, officials who serve cartels instead of citizens, and the federal operations that bring them to justice. This is Truth America, holding power accountable. We'll see you in the next one.